It is my current goal to beat the game of Pokemon Yellow every single week in a solo challenge using each of the entries of the Pokedex. That means a video about all 151 Pokemon throughout the series, and some of them are impossible like Caterpie and technically Weedle, which we kind of did like a fun little cheat run on with using items in battle. But then you've got Pokemon like Mew, where it's obvious that you can do that in an insanely short amount of time. And then you've got some other Pokemon that just sort of live in a world where it's not impossible, but it is maybe one of the worst things you've ever experienced. And I think that today you're going to witness that with Growlithe. I would rather do the Weedle challenge every week for a year than to ever touch this run ever again. And I know that at some point I will have to, and I already dread it. I think genuinely, I don't know if I've ever been more frustrated in the process of recording this show. And I think maybe if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, there's going to be a lot of things that sort of indicate why. Now, for Growlithe, we do not have any great options in terms of real type coverage type stuff. We are a little lucky that we get access to the move Dig later on and right around the time of the Cerulean Gym, which will be very helpful for some Pokemon. But also, you look at these stats, the special is really low, which is not good considering it's a fire type Pokemon. And in Gen 1, all the fire moves are special. So, okay, that's already kind of a demerit. Then, you really don't have a lot of other type coverage. We're going to have the ability to use Rest, but considering our defense and our special are pretty low, it doesn't necessarily feel great that we're going to live through using Rest, so not really a gamble. I think that's worth it. Body Slam is obviously not as strong as Takedown or Double Edge, but I really don't feel like Growlithe can afford to be losing HP throughout the fight, so Body Slam might be one of those late and great possible moves. It's not a late move, you get it in the third city, but you get where I'm going, I think. The other thing, though, here is that I have been trying to do these challenges without using the move Mimic. I will openly say, before you jump into the comments and go, what do you mean? With Mimic, you can get a pretty competitive time. I'm trying to do this without Mimic. I think that Mimic is, a gimmick that makes speedruns and stuff like that possible. And at some point, I do want to attempt some speedruns. This is just more of challenging myself in different ways. And with the base Pokemon, they can be very challenging because of the fact that those stats are pretty rough and very difficult to deal with and to sort of manage and to get kind of any kind of good, strong fights out of. I mean, sometimes you can do some cool stuff. Like we saw a pretty decent time with Charmander, honestly. And again, part of that probably comes from just the fact that it is one of my most used Pokemon of all time. That's my favorite guy. That was my starter when I very first played Pokemon Red, back when it first came out. So of course, I've been a Charmander guy since day one, which I know some people probably hate, but you know what? That's my guy and I'm sticking to him. And Charmander, I think, has certain things in common with Growlithe. A lot of the same struggles of not some great moves, but the big thing is that at the very least, Charmander gets moves earlier. The thing that makes Growlithe so bad is, just look at the moves here on the side. You start with Bite, which isn't necessarily a terrible move, but it is, of course, a normal type move in Gen 1. So it does mean that when you go up against Brock, it is resisted, so that's a struggle. Roar is a useless move. It will have some utility against Brock, but we'll get there later. But the thing is, I can't even use Ember the way that I did with Charmander because Ember is at level 18, which is not an ideal level to be going into the Brock fight just because of how much grinding that would require. Then you also then don't get the next possible move, which is Flamethrower, until level 50. That is such a high threshold to have that strong of a move. And so there's just a lot of times where, you're struggling along with Ember and not great stats. So there's a lot of, I think, kind of give and take with your ability with this Pokemon. And so like that just sort of becomes a real frustration. Now, it was a little touch and go there, but at level 9, it is able to beat the optional rival fight here. And I think it's something that is kind of important to do. There are times where I think it's easy to just sort of skip it. You don't really need the extra experience, or it doesn't really matter which team you're going up against for the champion fight. But this is one of those moments where I feel like you're gonna need all that experience in the early game, because Brock is going to be a challenge and a half. And honestly, again, Ember would be pretty decent for us to have at this point. I really don't think that training all the way up to level 18 feels like the right move, but I do want to try and go into this as low as possible. I don't think that level 12 is going to get the job done. I don't even think we're going to get past Geodude at level 12, but I think maybe somewhere around 15 or 16, Bite will have the ability to get past Brock. Now, what I've done here is I've done a little cut, and I've gotten us just a little over a level up, and we're about to hit level 14. I've been doing blackout training against this junior trainer, which basically just means that every time I get to the Sandshrew, I keep looking at it, and I keep going out very quickly by fighting the Diglett, getting the experience, and then doing this, which is just using Roar until it scratches me, and then I faint. And then eventually I come back, and I basically just keep blacking out. I keep getting the little bit of boost from the Diglett. Getting the Diglett XP is still better than trying to level up on like level 4 Caterpie. It's just kind of the only way, I think, to really do anything super efficient here in the beginning of the game. I try not to do blackout stuff often. I just typically use it for Pokemon that I think really need some extra help in time frames where there aren't other like additional battles that I can throw my Pokemon at. Like there's a lot of optional fights later on in the game that some Pokemon can easily just skip over, and then a Pokemon like Growlithe might need to fight as many of them as it can in order to get some kind of boosts going on, right? But in terms of like early game especially, and also a little bit later on once we get to a point where we're at like a basic like end game type situation. Those are the two parts of the game that I oftentimes think that sometimes you just have to take the blackout, and sometimes you just have to take the experience that you can get, back away, come back, and try and do that once or twice or maybe 12 times depending on how many times we need to level up to really feel any kind of possibility. But here we blacked out about 15 times, and then we went up against Brock at level 15. Now, as you can see, I've already lost a lot of HP, and one of the frustrating things here is the fact that Bite, which is normally a 60 power move, does get cut down to 30 because of that resistance that we talked about earlier. Bind is a nightmare of a thing to see, and I typically would have a moment here where I feel like I would save the game and then I would just reset. But because of what I was saying earlier about, Growlithe sort of needing the extra help, I considered letting the blackout happen against Brock, just because worst case scenario, I keep doing that until I get to level 16. I think 16 is where I would probably cut my losses maybe, and maybe just start over or something. We'll sort of see how it goes. But at the end of the day, 15 should be doable. As long as we're not getting hit with Bind back to back to back, we actually could do it, I think, fairly easily. Bite doesn't do a lot of damage, right? But if he uses Bide, like he uses just now, Roar is a move that doesn't really work in battle anyway, but it is something that I can spam to not add any kind of attack or power to the move of Bide, which means that he just wastes all of his turns, and then I can go back to attacking. And that is a great strategy just because it means that we're not going to be knocked out here and now, but it does mean that we are kind of finally starting to get a little low in HP. Luckily, we are able to see the end of the fight. That one is pretty tough when you don't have anything outside of a normal type move, but obviously having the decent attack that Growlithe has is also a bonus. Now, we spent about 10 minutes in Mount Moon. There's nothing really to showcase there. Like, sometimes I wonder if I should show, like, the extra optional fights that I take there if I'm going to use them. The thing is that, like, it's not something that Growlithe especially struggles with. When you're doing a solo challenge, a lot of the times you end up getting a lot of extra levels above other Pokemon. And by the time we hit level 18, even before Mount Moon, we had Ember, and so Ember was fine enough to get us through pretty much every single fight within Mount Moon, and then got us here to Cerulean 10 minutes later, yes, but also 5 levels richer, if you will. And that is crucial for this run, actually. It's going to be crucial for a lot of different factors. But first off, what we need to do is we have to go up against the rival first. In a game like this, it's not open world the way that, you know, Scarlet and Violet is, so I can't kind of pick and choose any which way I want to go. I am sort of selected on not exactly one track, but it is only like a couple of lanes. There's only a couple of options of where I can turn off. And so luckily what I can do is I can go up against the rival, go all the way to Bill, then make my way to my favorite music area, which is the SS, and fight through the entirety of the ship, get to level 30. We are 42 minutes in, and so I still only have one badge. This is a little bit by design. I skipped Misty on purpose because she is a water-type gym. My special is not good. She has a high defense. It is just sort of a recipe for disaster for a Pokemon like Growlithe to basically just wipe time and time again. So what you do is you go here to SS and you pick up Body Slam, you teach that, then of course you also level up, so then when you leave, you will have a much better chance at fighting Misty. And of course, it's not just Misty, but the optional trainers here within her gym. There are, I would say, still fairly few optional fights that I will take. There are a couple of routes that I just don't do any fighting on, really on any of the runs that I do, unless I am in desperate need of XP. I think we did with Weedle. I think Weedle fought every single trainer in the game, if memory serves, or close to it. I would say at least 90% of the trainers in that game he fought. Growlithe shouldn't be that bad, but Growlithe does need quite a lot of help throughout the game. And luckily, we got some pretty strong sets here. Now, I did use Dig, and I kind of can't believe that. And I also can't believe that Water Gun doesn't take us out. I got lucky. I think that's really the only way to describe that, is that sometimes in this game, you get lucky. That was 100% skill there. I made a misplay. I meant to go for Body Slam and then do Dig, you know, hoping that maybe I could get like the Paralyze off or something. But we get it done. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of all that matters. It just matters getting the badge. Sometimes they throw, or sometimes, like I said, you get lucky. Now we're working our way back to Vermilion, a place that we've already been to, but we cannot go to this gym without the second badge. So that is why we had to do this ever so slightly out of order. But I think it was necessary. As you could see, based on that last fight, we were not surviving that fight without all of these levels and these extra moves. This one, however, not a problem. We're not super effective against Electric type as a Fire type, but we have Dig, and so that's kind of all you ever need against Surge. Surge is just bad in Pokemon Yellow, so nothing new there. Next up, we take our trip through the hidden game corner Team Rocket secret base, and we are just sort of fast forwarding through. I typically just show like the end of everything, but today I figured, you know what, I'm going to show me basically working my way through the entirety of it. It is sped up, which is funny because it's already sped up as it is, but I didn't have enough kind of rambling capacity for this area to cover the whole thing, I think, at regular speed. But I just want to showcase sort of one of those moments where it's kind of important, I think, at least for Growlithe, to get in there, get all the experience. We're picking up as many of the items that we can that will be beneficial. One of the big things that we're doing is we're picking up, for example, 2 different nuggets that we can then sell. And it's going to be helpful for getting some of the items from the Celadon Mart, where we can get some boosts to our stats. We're getting close to a point where they actually won't be effective anymore, so we really want to get in there as soon as possible. Now that we're at an area where we can buy them, so, we'll be getting some Carbos, we'll be getting some Calcium. Those will be the two things that I really think I'll end up hitting the most. I desperately need to outspeed certain Pokemon within this run. A great example would be Aerodactyl on Lance's team. But basically, the other thing too is that I'm also then showcasing the fights here at Erica's gym, because this will also be another opportunity for me to get in some experience and get those stats up. Between the stat boosting items like the Carbos and the Calcium specifically, and then also all of these little extra fights, I should be getting myself up to a pretty high level by the time I get there. I have a slow growth rate, so that's also really not helpful for really any of this to begin with. That's another strong reason why Growlithe might be potentially the worst of the base fire Pokemon. Vulpix, because I haven't quite gotten there, Vulpix might give Growlithe a run for its money. But I kind of feel like after the experience of this one, don't know if you can really do much worse. Now, Growlithe is lucky because of the fact that we have both the fire and dig. We are able to make it through here very quickly. The Ember was really not quite strong enough, but, dig, once we got to the poison grass type, dig took care of the rest. I am also making sure to go through the dojo. It's more experience. I'll get a Pokemon that can use strength. All of that is pretty important. I usually skip over it. It's usually not important. It's usually just so I can pick up Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan, or if I'm really going for a very speedy run, I don't go there at all. And then maybe like my Squirtle or something like that just learns both Surf and Strength. But this is all sort of part of the game, part of the series, part of the whatever. Sometimes I just showcase something a little bit different. And in this case, it's just the fact that Growlithe needs so much help. Growlithe needs to fight almost any person that I come across. And I'm not going out of my way. I guess the dojo is slightly out of the way, but it's really close to other places that I need to be, Now, I don't always show where all of the rare candies are, but I will show another one today. There is one on the 10th floor of Silphco, and this is a time and opportunity where we are definitely going to be picking up every single one of the ones that we can find in this game. I didn't do the power plant one, and I don't necessarily think that would make a huge difference in this run, but if I do it again, I know I'll have to do it again. When I have to do this run again, I will definitely take the time to do that. Will it add like another minute to my run? Yeah, but will it probably help? I think it will. It's not going to make like the world's largest difference, but I think it will make a difference. Lowercase a difference, right? Now, I do a bunch of fighting around. I get up to level 49, and then right before the rival, I fight one of these rocket guys just outside of the warp pad to the rival, because I can get to level 50 here and learn Flamethrower, which I almost accidentally abandoned learning just because I was mashing the B button. Had to go through it twice. I was trying to also make sure that I didn't get rid of a move like Body Slam yet. So, you got to be careful. Sometimes at the high speed, you can easily make some large mistakes. But we learn Flamethrower, we get through at level 50, and then after this fight, I can go heal up. If you're not familiar with the warp pads and the way that things run here, right outside of that same spot, if you backtrack a little bit, you can get to the one heal space here, and then you can kind of go back. I cut just a few seconds there just for the sake of no one, I guess. Then I save, as always, right before this fight, and now it's time to go up against the rival. Now, we're an hour 25 in, which isn't like terrible per se for a base level Pokemon, especially one that has, so many hardships within the entire generation. Sometimes it's like a thing where, for sure, the game is built more for, and there's Clamp. That's definitely going to be the first reset. That's unfortunate. But the generation is definitely, or really any of the games, are built for you to have a full team, right? To find Pokemon that can then counteract other Pokemon. That's why you're able to switch out. That's why you're able to do whatever. Give them type coverage throughout their move sets and everything like that. the game is not really designed to be played in this way, but for sure future generations make it easier to do so. In Generation 1, it's one of those things where fire Pokemon are great in certain circumstances, but you're certainly not supposed to use them every single fight. And this run, I think, is probably a very clear indicator as to why. There are a lot of water Pokemon, a lot of very strong water Pokemon. There's a lot of strong ground type Pokemon. You've got the whole Brock situation in the beginning. And then just overall, there's really not a lot of literal firepower. You have Ember, which is Fire Spin, which is terrible. You've got Flamethrower, which is good. And then Fire Blast is strong, but it's inaccurate and there's very little PP. So, you're very limited in this generation. You don't have any like Flame Wheels. You don't have any Fire Fangs. No overheats, nothing, And again, it's also using only special. So when you've got a Pokemon like Growlithe that struggles in the special category, yeah, of course, this really is a solo challenge. I almost said challenge run, but I mean, I guess both are correct, but this really is a solo challenge. It is a challenge to do this solo. My goodness. Now, we are luckily still doing pretty well against Giovanni. That's a good look. That's a good feeling. That's our second attempt against him. We will have one more at his gym. Now that we are done with Team Rocket, there is a little bit of moment here where we get a little bit of speed up, right? I immediately go over to Sabrina. I probably should have just done Koga because then I could get the speed boost. That is, I think, a big reason why to do this. I don't know why I'm treating it as if it's a speed run. I'm like, well, I'm already in this city. I should just go ahead and do this, not take the time to get into a menu and use fly or anything like that. Yeah, because like that happens. All those Pokemon are outspeeding me. And so I probably should have just gone and gotten the speed boost. I'm pretty sure the speed boost would get me, well, at least for the first two. I don't think I'd outspeed Alakazam without agility at this point. But without agility, I'm not outspeeding anybody. Now, luckily, with one boost, I'm there, right? And so that's the first Pokemon down. I do have one accuracy debuff, which is a little scary. As you can see, we get really close to dying there, but luckily the debuff wasn't too hefty, and so we defeat Sabrina. Now we get to immediately dig out. I go back to Koga's gym. We take on his whole thing. Again, he's just a bug-type gym leader in this particular game. Not in this generation. He does, in Red and Blue, actually have the true blue poison team, right? In this particular game, it's built a little bit more towards the anime with a Venonat and a Venomoth, which are still poison, but they're, primary bug. And I don't need to use any boosts to outspeed anything, really. I mean, maybe I could to outspeed the Venomoth, but it's not going to give any kind of boost to my special. And as you can see, didn't need it. I mean, at level 55 and Flamethrower being boosted up to 285, it stands to reason that it should be one shot. Next up is Blaine's gym. Cinnabar is really hard on the eyes, so I always immediately cut to his fight anyway. But I'm also showcasing that we are picking up speed a little bit, which is good. Growlithe needs that. Growlithe needs that. That's for sure. So we defeat the first two Pokemon. He uses Reflect, which is kind of a waste. He then uses Takedown, which does do a decent amount of damage, even without having any kind of boosted stats. But Dig, once again, serves me well. And then we dig out. Next up is Giovanni's, and Giovanni has a real easy way of taking me down, obviously. Earthquake is pretty devastating, and that's a first reset there. I mean, not the first of the series, I mean first one against him. That is unlucky. Okay, we're going to have a few moments like this. We're going to have some real struggles because this is what I was talking about earlier about there are just some really strong ground type. And specifically, Dugtrio outspeeds me, right? So there is also a strong chance that it could just get off a fissure and kill me in that way. The other issue is that I did do a bunch of training, but I have to use a couple rare candies here just to make sure that I'm not leveling up in the middle, because that's really not going to do me any good. Okay, well, doesn't really seem to have mattered. That's frustrating. Okay, it's fine. We know that we're going to have... Okay, all right. Let's kind of lock in, if we can, Growlithe. I'd like to not use all of our rare candies immediately, just because, again, I want to save those for when we're at a higher level anyway, just because of, well, there's multiple reasons. But if nothing else, I need to be able to save a couple for the end game anyway, because we have agility currently in our moveset, which means that we don't want to be leveling up in the middle of some of the more crucial fights. We want to be able to save a rare candy right before we go into a fight. Yeah, it means that you're kind of missing a little bit of experience randomly, but the big thing is that you want to be able to use agility and not have those badge boosts get reset mid-fight, because that can make or break in a major way. And speaking of making or break, Growlithe does the thing. We got through honestly, the Duck Trio was the worst of it. Really, I guess most of them, I mean, are pretty bad. The Nidoking and Queen can be very hit or miss. The Rhydon obviously can be pretty devastating. The fact that it went for a rock type move was, I guess, the best thing it could have done, maybe. I feel like that could have killed us, but also could miss way more often than something like Earthquake. But we get to the rival fight. This is the last time that the rival is the rival before they're the champion. And it's also one of those times where you kind of, depending on the Pokemon, this could be the last time you have an easy moment against them, or it could be the start of the downfall, right? This is the area of the game where the rival finally starts to show that he effectively has a plan. Not that he doesn't in other areas. I mean, I guess he can be pretty tough at Silph at times, depending on the Pokemon. But really, again, here is where sometimes we just see a lot of resets there. And we didn't today, so therefore we get to go through Victory Road. We make it to Indigo Plateau. We drop off all of our Pokemon. We heal up one last time just to be certain. We buy some full restores. I use a couple of my rare candies just to make sure that we're starting off at a strong level. And then we're going to start making our way towards the end of the game. Now, here you can see we are beginning the Elite Four at under 2 hours, which isn't bad, I would argue, for a Fire-type Pokemon, considering how many issues we know there can be or could have had earlier. We've had a few fights that, yeah, for sure, Giovanni took some time, but it feels a little surprising outside of Charmander and that line that we could get here this early. And this is where some of the problem begins. Once again, we have a strong water type. I'm going to say water type because this is one of those things where sometimes we go, oh yeah, it's ice. It's an ice area. There's only one ice Pokemon fully, I would argue, on this team. And even that is a ice/psychic Pokemon. Everything else is water type. And then Slowbro isn't even ice type at all. Slowbro is just straight up water. Well, water psychic, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, we get here, it's more water type Pokemon that we will struggle with. And it makes the Flamethrower really not hit, I feel like. You know what I mean? I feel like Flamethrower struggles in a way that I wouldn't love to see. And Hydro Pump easily could have taken us out there. I am kind of shocked that we lived that. I mean, at this point, I guess the natural boost from the badge got us to where we're at. But Lapras is not, weak by any means necessary. So, okay. Sometimes, though, like I said earlier in this video, sometimes you just get lucky. And that's one of those moments. But it just means only one reset on Lorelei. We move on to Bruno. Bruno is a lot like Surge. Bruno is not a problem, as you can see. So we get to move on to Agatha. Agatha can be an absolutely brutal fight. But luckily we have the move Dig, and that is all that we really need in this fight. 1 agility means that we outspeed everything. Flamethrower can break the substitute. Now, I gotta be careful because A, I'm confused, but also I can use Dig and it could just use substitute again. It does not, however. So no wasted move there. Body Slam is probably the only thing that we have that's really great against Golbat. Flamethrower maybe could have done the job. I don't know. Dig. And now the good news is that because they poison us, they can't put us to sleep with Hypnosis and then use Dream Eater. So weirdly, the poisoning works, at least when you're at basically full health. Though Toxic obviously makes it go worse and worse, we can still get through with just under half health. Now we are healed up, ready to go up against Lance. I'm going to use 2 rare candies and save one last one in between this fight and the next one. And then we're just going to fight Lance. No problem. Well, okay, maybe not no problem because, yeah, as you just saw, he just used Hydro Pump and it nearly took me out. And the issue that we have here is that we don't have anything effective against anybody else, and there's not really time to do any kind of setup. So now we're just sort of really hoping for the best. Yeah, okay. The best possible scenario here, because Gyarados is so strong. Gyarados is absolutely busted in this game. I mean, it's absolutely preposterous at times. And the fact that Body Slam did so much damage on the first one, then the second one, it just is like nothing. It feels like nothing. I know there's a range on how much those moves can do, but I mean, that had to have been an exceptionally low roll, that second one. It feels impossible that it could do more than half and then suddenly just a sliver. But the problem is of course, we're now having the same sorts of issues, is that even if we get through Gyarados, we are not getting through with a lot of health. Hydro Pump is supposed to be inaccurate, but oftentimes it's hitting every time, or nearly every time, and I need it to be way more inaccurate. I need to be getting through this fight with more health, because otherwise we get to here, to 30 resets, 2 hours, 13 minutes. It's been almost 15 minutes since we started the Elite Four. And considering we're at 4 times speed, that just goes to show how much time we have spent on Lance. But 30 resets is bad, but not that bad, right? Okay. 48 resets is bad. It's a bad time. No one is having fun. No one is having fun with this. I am miserable watching this back. I am miserable watching us get to this point where I am so close to death at all points. And I just know that, you know, the last 2 Pokemon don't really have to do anything in order to kill me. I'm dead. I'm dead there. Okay. So 49 resets. Go. Oh my God. Okay, 56 is only 7 more resets after that, and it's basically just the same thing over and over again. And the crazy thing is, it's not even like it's an issue like I have in other games where sometimes I go, oh, after 3 or 4 resets, I'll just, you know, go back and do something else. Once you're in the Elite Four, you kind of really can't. There's nowhere really else to go. You can't really go do some grinding without fully leaving the area and doing some crazy stuff. But the other thing too is just that like it's so inconsistent based on rolls and getting paralyzes or getting certain things off or getting certain things not off. And so you just die over and over and over again to different Pokemon within the team over and over and over again until you're at 70 resets. My God. I mean, I know part of this is just me being stubborn, but it's also that thing that I said at the beginning of the episode. I refuse to do this with Mimic. I don't think you need to do Mimic. I think that, yeah, maybe if you're doing I almost said a fire spin. I don't know why that it would even be a thing. I'm spinning out myself. If you're trying to do a speed run, yeah, okay, maybe you're going to use Mimic. But like, how does that really make it any different than every other Pokemon that can also use that move? It's just so... I don't know. Sometimes I just don't like seeing Mimic 100 times over and over and over again. I want to see true grit. But what I also don't want to see is this? This, I think, objectively sucks. And that might be the harshest language I've used on this channel so far. I really don't remember using that word before or not, which feels kind of funny because, I'm a grown man. I use, adult language. But here on this channel, I keep it family friendly. But I'll tell you, this challenge sometimes really is a testament to my ability to keep it together, because it could be very easy to let the cuss words fly when you're 71 resets in. We've spent over 30 minutes here. And so finally, at 72 resets, I take the note and I do the thing that I've always said, which is sometimes you just have to black out train. And so my thought was, I'll just go in and I'll fight through the Elite Four again. If I faint, I faint, and then I'll keep going until I get there without fainting. And I did it on my next attempt. All it did was get me basically 2 levels up, which is not really a huge difference per se. And now I'm paralyzed. So now I'm just back here again facing the same issues, but now at level 77 instead of 75. I don't think I want to hear it. If you have a comment, just know you can leave it. And I don't mean like leave it in the comment section. You can leave a comment about other stuff. I don't want to hear it though. If it's about, well, you can do this without 83 resets. Again, I'm not going to use Mimic. I'm at level 77. I should be able to do this. And this is the stubbornness in me. I could have walked away. I could have blackout trained more. I could have done so many different things, but I started getting indignant with this one. I was like, there's no way Growlithe doesn't do this. And that was the kind of luck that I needed this whole time. That was what I was looking for on 83 attempts. Okay, maybe not 83, but over 50 attempts. That was the RNG that I needed. That was the strength level. Those were the outspeeds. Those were the everything. My God, 83 resets, 2 hours, 48 minutes. And we have moved on to the rival. This rival needs to be either a pushover or needs to throw this fight big time, because I'm not going to do another 50 resets against the rival. I'll tell you that. Sorry, the champion. I should put some respect on his name. He worked hard. We grew up together. We're friends. Yeah, I feel for him. Okay, 2 hours, 49 minutes. I am definitely moving slower in my decisions, and not because I'm questioning it. It's definitely, you can, I think maybe through the screen, feel me just sort of mentally a little brain dead about this. The fact that Fire Blast does not kill Exeggutor makes me livid. I'm level 77 and it's Fire Blast. Be for real. Be for absolute real. My God. All right, either way, eventually after all of his barrages and hypnosis, I have used 2 agilities, and now my Fire Blast, okay, now that I've missed and he got his little clamp off, now my Fire Blast is strong enough to take out both Exeggutor and Cloyster back to back. Dig, of course, will be strong against the last 2 Pokemon, and that means that at 2 hours and 50 minutes and 18 seconds, 19, sorry, there's a little bit of a menu thing there, we have defeated the game with Growlithe with 83 resets. Normally, I feel like I would be much more hype about beating the game. I'd be much more excited. I'd do some sort of, triumphant speech. But I mean, without Mimic, yeah, it's possible. I beat the game on my own terms. But at what cost? Mostly my mental health. Mostly my enjoyment of playing this game. And that doesn't mean that I'm done with these, games, with this series, with anything. It just means that there definitely became a point where I was no longer like, yay, I get to play Pokemon Yellow. It became a bit of a chore, and that's never fun. But obviously, something that you love does not always have to be perfect, and something that you love is not always going to be exactly how you expect it or how you want it to be, and that is also okay. So while this one was very frustrating, I am very much looking forward to more solo challenges within this game. I hope that my mental strife has brought you some sort of entertainment, and if you have enjoyed this video and you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please consider giving this a like, a share, a comment would be great. Anytime you engage with the content for a small creator, it helps us out a lot. And I appreciate all the people who are commenting week after week. You all really make this a great journey to be a part of. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week for a solo challenge in Pokemon Yellow.